explain a bit more about
The Four Noble Truths?
Yeah.
Life is dukkha, suffering has as a cause. It's possible to take away this suffering, and the way to do it is the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
Which ones?
The second one.
And third one, sure. Well, the difficult intellectual part involves the 12 links of dependent origination. But basically, and the suffering can come from begin anywhere. But the first, the origin of suffering is ignorance, which leads to desire. And then that leads to birth, old age, sickness, and death. It's a little more complicated, but that's it. So basically, we crave life. Even people who kill themselves, who crave death, that's an opposite. That's the same as craving life, okay? It's craving. And we're born because somewhere in this karmic stream we've created, there's craving. And based on our karma, this craving takes form in the world. And we've become humans. Maybe cats are better. Our cats are a pretty good life, I don't know. But, and that's the origin of suffering. And of course, in Theravadan Buddhism, Southern Buddhism, the goal is to attain nirvana, which is the end of all craving. Then you just live out your life and you're never reborn. In Mahayana Buddhism, the goal is in everyday life, samsara is nirvana according to how you keep your mind. If you attain this moment clearly, that is nirvana as you are living, okay? And then the aim is when you die, make a vow to come back and help others. Okay? Most of us come back, we have no choice because there's craving and we've created this karmic stream. But if we've eliminated this craving completely and lived a very, what Buddha called noble life, then you don't come back. But we're Mahayana. China is Mahayana. And Mahayana is, you can attain nirvana right in the midst of your everyday life, lay life, by attaining this moment clearly. And then you simply use this moment to help others, okay? So that's what those two are. If you eliminate desire for yourself, then you can use desire to help others. So someone asked Seung Sunim, does a bodhisattva have desire? I remember, I think story is in Dropping Ashes, and he said, big desire. And the person was surprised, what kind of desire? Then he said, desire to save all beings. And I had a very similar conversation with him. The second time I went to do a 3-day retreat, I had known him a month. I hadn't seen him for a month because I went back to where I lived and worked. But after the first retreat, first of all, I really felt this is the teacher. I didn't know I was looking for a teacher, but when I heard him answer questions, I thought, this is the person I'm looking for. And it had everything. It had a teacher, teaching, and a sangha, And I was also looking for a sangha. I didn't have those words or anything, but I knew I wanted Zen Buddhism. And I didn't know who I was going to see. I just found the Zen Center, heard about that the Zen master was going to come in, I think it was 2 months, and I went back to the Zen center and sat the retreat and felt very connected with him. He said something during my first interview, and I was surprised at myself, but this thought appeared, I've been waiting my whole life to hear that. So I guess this is really what I was looking for my whole life. I didn't know it exactly until I was 26, and I heard it, And at the second retreat, he was answering questions on Thursday night. I asked him, I think because I had trouble with my own desires. And I thought, well, if you're enlightened, you have no desires. So I asked him, question answer time. I said, do you have any desires? And he said, he went like, many desires. And I was really surprised. So I said, what do you desire? And he said, I desire to save you. And I think I was a little clever because I don't know how it came to me, but I thought that's also a desire. So I said to him, who will save you? And then he said, you will. And then I got stuck. And I was just and then he said to me something like, how will you save me? And I was like, what's this? I don't know what I was going to do, but I just raised my hand and what's this? And I can't remember how the conversation went. All I remember is he slowly twisted me into a pretzel. So Zen students had 2 kinds of sicknesses. The first is fall into emptiness, being attached to nirvana. Everything's empty. There's no good, no bad. There's no suffering. You just attached, so you're suffering. That's a Zen student's problem. In what we call our Zen circle, that's attached to 180. Okay, attached to this point, substance. So you have some experience, true nature is before thinking. But if you stay there, how can you function in the world? So that's first Zen sickness. Second Zen sickness is Bodhisattva sickness. Too much want to help others. And that's also a problem. Yeah. So that's what those 2 are about. Desire, which is rooted in ignorance. Ignorance in English, sometime I'm going to ask Dae Bong Sunim to break down for me the Chinese character for ignorance. You might be able to do that for me, or you, because sometimes these things are interesting. Isn't the character for patience sword over mind? That's amazing. That's patience, mind sword. Isn't that cool? So sometimes I like to ask Chinese Buddhists, what exactly does this mean? Because there's all this meaning in there. And of course it just gets translated with one word. But ignorance in English means to ignore something. What are you ignoring? True nature. You're attaching to your form, your feelings, your form, feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness. You're attaching to that. You are ignoring true nature, your true nature. And that's the root of everything, of all the suffering. And then, if we take that away, then take away suffering. Your body may still have suffering, but your mind's not suffering. And even when your body's no good, you can use the situation in a beneficial way. And people can do this without practicing, just not much. You can imagine a mother with young children who's dying of cancer. She's not just going to cry. Maybe when she's alone or with her husband, she'll cry. But when the children come, she'll give them some kind of faith mind to help them live without her. That's using her situation. I don't know what, but I kind of imagine, like, Mommy's always with you. I love you. I am gone. I look like I'm gone. I'm living in your heart. You need something from me. Talk to me, okay? And some of the kids will get confidence. I feel like Seung Sunim is still with me. I don't know what that is. It's not like, I see Seung Sunim. It's not like that. It's just this feeling of not being separated. When I went to Hong Kong for the first time after Seung Sunim died, I spent 27 years not with him all the time, but with him all the time. I only spent 18 years with my parents, and the rest of my life was trying to get clear so I can treat them decently. Which happened too, which was pretty amazing. But when he died, I didn't feel he was gone. It was weird. It's still weird to me. I don't know what that means even. But when I went to Hong Kong, the first thing people asked me in a public talk is, did you cry when Seung Sunim died? No. I didn't feel any separation. I didn't feel any loss. He's still here. I don't know what that means, but it's that feeling. How'd that happen? And I think twice I've thought I'd like to ask him something. But most of the time, he gave me some really good teaching before he died, too, that I think helped a lot. I knew that I had run away from Musangsa in 2002, in May. 3 years of living here in a yogwan, in a container box, and building this, and the workers didn't speak English. I don't speak Korean, and I was eating down in the village every day, and many interesting things happened. And then the Sanims, oh my God, they came and drove me nuts. They're all gone. Those guys are gone. But I left first. And the Seung Sunim was very funny because I told him I'm leaving, and he said, no problem, you go. He later told somebody, he'll come back. So I didn't know I was coming back, but somehow he knew I was going to come back. I was going about 1.5 years. But when I came back, although I only came back for 1 month for one meeting, and my plan was spend 1 day with him and come down here, because I didn't want to be near him because I was afraid he was going to tell you have to come back and go down there and be Joe Shill some more. I even tried to stop being Joe Shill, and he said, no, that's okay, just go, you go. Oh, actually, he's so tricky. I was part of the legal board, which is made up of like 7 people that legally oversees. This is a privately owned temple, but with a very solid legal religious organization under Korean law. And he told me keep it independent. But before I left, he said, you must come to this board meeting, which is once a year. So I go to the meeting. At the board meeting, he resigns as president and he makes me president. And I said, Seung Sunim, I'm leaving. Oh, no problem, you go. Well, I wasn't going to make a fight with him and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I just wanted to leave. So he's a dangerous guy, but kind of funny in a way. So anyway, I ended up staying with him for when I came back, and I only came down here 1 day, and while I was staying there, I decided I'm just going to stay until it dies. And we don't know. That's 1 year, 10 years, it doesn't matter, because I saw I could be helpful there. And he just wanted me to eat with him 3 times a day and help the 2 people who were taking care of him. And many interesting things happened. when the monk was angry at the nun, he'd take me out and complain, and then she'd take me out and complain, and then they felt a little better. Things like that. And I loved being the Zen master who wasn't a Zen master. I was the third in the group. I was the guy who ate with Sansanim and pushed the wheelchair. I had no power there. It was wonderful. But at one point, I realized when he passes away, I'll come back down here. And I never told him, but often if I realized what I was going to do next, somehow he knew, even when I didn't tell him. Same thing happened when I decided to stay. I was supposed to lead the 3-month retreat starting in January in American Providence, Rhode Island. And I decided to stay. I hadn't said anything. I called up the abbot there. It was October, and I said, I'm not coming. He's like, what? It's already scheduled to stay there 3 months. And I said, I'm going to stay with Seung Sansanim. And he was great. He understood immediately. That's much more important and valuable. And he said, okay, don't worry about it, no problem. Not just for me, I was able to help, But anyway, during that time, when I realized I'll come back down here, I said to him one time, because I'd always ask him when I got some job, what's the most important thing in my job? And just off the top of his head, he gave amazing advice. I don't think I can do that, but wow. Or maybe he just knew me really well. So this time we just happened to be standing in his room. I hadn't said I'm going to go back down here when he passes away, but that's what I meant. What's the most important thing in my job? And he said, you understand your job, just do it. I think that's helped a lot. Because I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't have any special idea if we should be like this or like this. We should practice. We should try and get along with each other, and each person should see their karma, make efforts to control it, and then make it disappear, and then attain their karma and use it. Very simple, basic teaching. What is meditation? When you're doing something, do it. What is wisdom? Substance, truth, and function become clear. And moment to moment, it appears for others if we get wisdom. And how can you check yourself? Am I keeping correct situation, correct function, correct relationship, moment to moment? That's all of our teaching right there. So if we reflect back on ourselves, we begin to see our karma, our habits, our body habits, our emotional habits, our thinking habits, our desire habits. Once you see it, if you can not be controlled by it, then practicing, you can make it disappear. Then you attain it. Maybe you have some issues with eating, but you control it. You don't eat between meals. Maybe you only eat breakfast and lunch. Things like that. Most of us, I think, have done those things to see our karma. Then you control it, and one day, it's not a big deal to you. Whatever comes is okay. And you kind of know what amount is enough, Then you still have to eat. So you use that well for others that you eat. Or, for example, this isn't even valid anymore, but you have a female body. He and I have a male body. But our true nature has no female, no male. But we all got these ideas put in us by society, mixed with our own karma, well, females like this, males like this. Some people just swallow whatever the idea happens to be current when they're growing up. Other people have very strong karma, so they either follow that regardless of what society's saying, or you look at all of that, what's coming in from society, what's coming up in you, and you digest it, and it doesn't control you anymore. And it disappears. It's just my thinking that makes karma. Then you look down, I still have a male body. Some of you still have a female body. Then how do I use that moment to moment in the situation? But you're not attached to it anymore. And if we can do that with most of our karma, then our life becomes a benefit for others. Yeah. So you still can have desires, but if they're not controlling you, you can decide when it's helpful, when it's not. There was this movie, American Beauty. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but there's one part where the husband and wife aren't getting along. And they have like this teenage daughter. And the husband quits his high-class job, starts working in a McDonald's. But he starts to get the hots really attracted to his daughter's girlfriend. She's like 16 or 17. It's totally terrible. But she acts like she's very experienced with sex. So anyway, at one point in the movie, she's over the house and the two of them are on the couch, and he starts hugging and kissing her and going down, and suddenly she says, I'm a virgin. And he realizes, she's a kid. She's the same age as my daughter. What am I doing? And then they sit up, and he acts like a healthy adult. That kind of thing, where you suddenly see your karma and become correct, that always affects me in a movie. Because if that happens in your life, and it does once in a while, for anybody, it's really good. And it can happen in a million different ways. So, second noble truth is suffering arises from desire, which is rooted in ignorance, and suffering is taken away by seeing desire clearly, not being controlled by it, but even more importantly, taking away ignorance, realizing your true nature. So there's a very good, very short video that I saw where an Englishman who is a Tibetan Lama is asked what happens after people die. And he says, or maybe it's not him, it's some Tibetan teaching. But in any case, he says, when the body dies, the consciousness is still going a little bit, but it often gets unclear. But there is a moment where, this is the way they describe it. Zen is like, now, floor's yellow, cushion's brown, Dharma talk. Attain this moment, then that moment, no problem. But anyway, this was striking to me. There's a moment where even the consciousness kind of dissolves into the, brightness of your true nature, and there's the opportunity to get enlightened. And if you don't, slowly the karmic habits start to have energy and lead you into some kind of birth. Animal birth, or hungry ghost, or hell, or human, or fighting asuras, like in the picture that we chant the Heart Sutra to, or heaven. But the best position is human, because heaven has too much pleasure doesn't raise a question, what am I? Angry people have too much fighting mind and jealousy mind. Animals are a little similar to humans. They're both realms of desire, but they are so connected to body, they almost never will raise a thought of enlightenment. What am I? You know, some elephants seem to know about death. Some porpoises do. Some of the apes seem to know something, you know, but we really know. And we're freaked out by it. Or we want it as soon as possible. Or hungry ghosts are people who basically have wasted food, like a lot. And hell realm are people who have created many suffering for others. And you know, in Buddhism, none of that's eternal. When you've paid back your debt by getting good things for matching the good things you did, you fall back into the whole system again. Or you suffer enough, when you're in hell, you can't think of who am I because there's too much suffering. You know, doesn't this happen to you? Sometimes you're suffering so much, I'm not going to bow, you know. Then when you a little bit come up, I better go bow. Well, can imagine hell realm if your body's on fire and being boiled, but you don't die and stuff like that. But when you've paid back your evil debts, boom, you pop back into the whole system again. But what he said was really struck me that's interesting. Well, you can only cut this karmic stream if you've attained wisdom. That's interesting. So Sahn didn't spend a lot of effort answering our questions about meditation techniques. He focused on direction, why you practice, and getting wisdom. Getting samadhi, a strong center, that's totally our job. I mean, Saddam Hussein had a strong center. Maybe Kim Jong-un does. I mean, he had no problem killing off his uncle and other people. That's a strong center. But direction is hell realm, you know. So, but only we can make our center strong by our efforts. And don't fret, don't just moment to moment.